Hello, and welcome to NAIFA Live. I'm your host, Zach Hewells. We have a great program for you today, but first we are going to go to John D. Richardson of NAIFA, Tennessee for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, John. And now it's my pleasure to turn things over to NAIFA CEO Kevin Mayu for some NAIFA announcements. Kevin?
Welcome, NAIFA Nation, to February's NAIFA Live. We are off to a strong start for 2021. Our National Board of Trustees voted to adopt our 2025 strategic plan, which builds on the good work we've done for the last 5 years in modernizing NAIFA and paving a path forward as one national association that is unified in elevating the profile of our members, banding together to deliver top education and networking opportunities, and mobilizing to advocate on the state, interstate, and federal levels on behalf of our clients, communities, and country. I am so proud to lead our staff in implementing the 2025 strategic plan that focuses on the 3 pillars of membership growth, brand amplification, and the member experience. We've been building out the 2021 business implementation plan and working with chapter staff to develop coordinated plans that allow NAIFA to move as one unit to achieve our collective goals. Our ability to come together at the state, local, and federal levels is one of the core tenets of our value proposition to advocate, educate, and differentiate our members. With another year that looks like our events will likely be held virtually, it's important that we keep moving forward and don't wait for things to go back to normal. We've embraced that fact and will move forward, continuing to be nimble and deliver value to our members. While we continue to experience change, one thing that hasn't changed at NAIFA is the passion that we feel for the profession, for our members, and for our potential as an association. All of you here today get it. You value belonging to your professional association and are passionate about the work that you do every day for Main Street Americans. As you know, February 14th is Valentine's Day, and we started a new tradition last year to publicly celebrate our passion for NAIFA through a week-long focus on all the things we love about NAIFA. Watch your social media channels as we kick off I Love NAIFA Week, which celebrates our leaders, our members, partners, our Lilly graduates, LACP and LUTCF recipients, and our award winners. This week, we will open up our new applications for the National Quality Award, 4 Under 40, and Diversity Champion Awards, so that people have more time to apply and learn about the power of awards in differentiating yourself. During the week, we will also announce our National Speakers Bureau and the application process for getting named as a national level speaker as we release our new mobile app and desktop application called NAIFA Connect that will empower a modern Find an Advisor search for our consumer site and provide NAIFA with new ways of communicating through a collective community and collective calendar. While we have so much that is new and continuously focus on the future, we never want to forget our past. Recently, we have seen the loss of many of our NAIFA family. As many of you probably saw in trade publications, we recently lost Jack Bobo, a legend who did so much for the profession and for NAIFA. I'd like to take a brief moment of silence for Jack and all those we've lost this past year. If you know of a NAIFA member that we've lost, please let us know so we can pay homage to them and a special tribute with an advisor today. We've received many appreciative notes from families that mention NAIFA and their family members' obituary, and we found notices through social media. However, let's make sure this isn't happenstance. We want every NAIFA member to know, and their families to know, how much we appreciate their dedication to our collective association and have the opportunity to recognize their service to the profession. We want to thank all of our staff members and leaders nationwide who have let us know about the passing of a NAIFA family member so that we can do our small part in thanking them for their service and their love for NAIFA. Now let's turn our attention to today's main event, which showcases a member that has provided his service and love for helping others achieve financial security ever since leaving the NBA. As you know, February is Black History Month, and NAIFA is a fervent supporter and advocate of our DEI program and efforts to ensure that the financial advisors serving Main Street reflect the consumers that live on Main Street. I'm proud to introduce Chris Gandy, a member of our Board of Trustees who has served as Chicagoland's president and is an avid and active member of our DEI program committee. Chris has volunteered so much of his time serving on our strategic planning committee, testifying before the NAIC, and taking part in work groups with ACLI's Economic Empowerment and Racial Equality Initiative, a program that NAIFA proudly supports. Chris is a proud alum of the University of Illinois and was a key participant in this past year's inaugural Future Leaders program held during our Performance Plus Purpose conference, where he was also ranked a top-rated presenter. Chris is going to speak with us today about everyone's favorite topic, growing your business, and hopefully give us some tips on how we can achieve his level of energy while maintaining his absolute cool. Please let me welcome Chris Gandy, Illini and Chicago Bulls alum, founder of the Midwest Legacy Group, and loyal member of NAIFA since 2003. Chris?
I appreciate you inviting me here and NAIFA Nation inviting me here to participate in a NAIFA Live. We're so excited to be here to be able to share with our brothers and sisters around the country about best practices. And ultimately, the topic that we chose for today, hopefully it'll inspire you. Hopefully it'll be something that you're able to take some amazing notes. And hopefully you get something out of this that will ultimately help you improve your practice in 2021. So the February NAIFA Live topic of the day will be how to double your practice. My name is Chris Gandy. I am the president and CEO of a group by the name of Midwest Legacy Group, based out of Chicago. Go Cubbies. And I'm here to talk about my journey in the business, but also hopefully there's something that I say inspires yours, because I believe that we can ultimately learn from each other as we move forward into the future. And through collaboration, we'll be able to learn how to really grow and develop both personally, professionally, and then financially along the way. So the topic we're going to jump into today is how to double your practice. Is anyone out there not interested in doubling their practice? I mean, just think today, if we can double our practice today and tomorrow and then the following day, double it again, or each year we double our practice. Where will we be 4 to 5 years from now? Well, let's talk about, I'm going to give you 10 easy steps today in our conversation that ultimately will lead you and hopefully lead you down the pathway of ultimately that exponential growth that we're all looking for as we continue to move forward in our practice. So let's get into it. How to double your practice, and let's do it. Let's say we're going to do it within 12 to 16 months. Okay. So I like to start off conversations with a quote, and the quote today is going to be, "Purpose is the reason for your journey, but passion is the fire that lights the way." And so as we get into this, I'm going to ask you to do 3 things. One, I'm going to ask you to take copious notes, because champions take copious notes. The second thing I'm going to ask you to do is to do a little reflection of, on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you on these skill sets, on these numbers, on the identity of the things that I'm going to talk about? Where are you? 1 through 10. 10 is I'm doing fantastic, Chris. I crush it. 1 is, yeah, I'm just trying to figure it out. I heard that exists, right? I want you to grade yourself as we go through this, because there are no absolutes in life, right? There's somewhere in between. And our goal is just to take 1 step forward as we continue to move. And the last thing I'll ask you to do is share this information with others. Why? Because at the end of the day, that's all we are vessels for knowledge as we continue to inspire each other. So let's go to the next slide. Let's get into where we are. So the goal, 10, right? 10 seconds goes by just like that. 10 minutes goes by just like that. So here are 10, what I believe 10 easy steps. I've been in the business now 22 years. And in the 22 years, I've worked with advisors that have had no experience. I've worked with advisors that have had tons of experience. And I'll use myself as an example. I entered into the industry 22 years ago. as a recovering athlete and trying to figure out how I was ultimately going to do this business. So over time, I've been taking copious notes. And what I'm going to talk about today is the 10 simple steps in your practice to improve your client impact, to really impact your clients. And I call it the 10 easy steps because they're things that we naturally know we should do, but sometimes we have to be reminded how to do them, or sometimes we have to just identify, somebody else has to say it to us, and perhaps we hear it a different way. So perhaps today I will say some things that hopefully you take and you can use. So let's get into the first step here. The first one is inventory. So when you start to look at the industry, if you go back and we look at industry, how do you keep track of your ratios? How do you do that? When we start to take a look at it, there's only been a handful of people and individuals who've had the ability to basically be able to do that. There's only been a handful of people that have actually taken the time historically and done studies on where we are. We've got to utilize those systems. We've got to utilize those ratios that ultimately lead us to success. So what are your sales ratios? You know, historically, they say that it takes 10 living, breathing human beings for 3 people to sit down with you and share their information, for 1 to become a client within the next 90 days. And that history, that information comes from How to Build a Successful Financial Clientele underneath the studies of Al Granum and his system from the Northwestern Mutual System. But that process has been refined and has been updated as we move forward. So what are your sales ratios? In our system, you have to know that. You've got to know what your sales ratios are. You've got to know what it takes to take someone from 0 to hero. And you've got to identify that, and you've got to have a system. So I believe in quotes because I think they're powerful, and they're very powerful when they don't say a lot. So it's either a process or it's a problem. I'll repeat, it's either a process or it's a problem. If it's a problem, it's not a process. If it's a problem, it's only a problem until you develop a process so it no longer becomes a problem in your practice. So I would encourage you all, one system or bust. Sell out on the system that you decide to use, because whatever system you decide to use, everything counts. So what I mean by everything counts is I played sports. A little bit about me, my previous life, I was an athlete, and I played college basketball. And in college basketball, our coach would get things called stats. And the stats would happen after the game. And the stats tell us a lot about what transpired during the game. So if our guy had 30 points, 15 rebounds, our coach would say, great game. He didn't have to go back and watch the tape. He didn't have to go and actually watch the game or sit down on the sidelines and coach the game. He knew that someone made this type of impact, they had a successful game. And we could tell by the stats. So my question is, what are your stats? Do you know your stats? And if you don't know your stats, I encourage you to go back and look and see over the last 30 days, real easy inventory. Let's go back over the last week. Over the last week, what have your ratios been from stranger, individuals you don't know, to individuals that will sit down with you, to individuals that ultimately will buy from you? And then what is the time lag in between the beginning of that process and the end of that process? So sell out on a system. The system that I use that has always meant something to me has been the one card system, because of the sales ratios and the historic ratios over a 25-year period of time and 25 years of research. The large data gathering has allowed for me not to believe in fake numbers. It's allowed for me to believe that if somebody else can do it, I could do it. And those ratios are fairly true to light today. So everything counts. So what I mean by that is just simply this. I consider things like qualified suspects and fact-finding conversations and presentations in our conversations, those all count for something. I equate it to a cash register. So many of us have been to a place where a cash register where you give them your money and they give you back change. Well, let's just take this situation and let's think of a cash register in our business. The financial cash register is a couple things. One, we have qualified suspects or we have suspects. Those count as the pennies in the drawer. And then we have individuals that want to meet with us, and those count as the dollar bills in the drawer. And then we have individuals that after they sit down with us want to actually see us again, right? Can you imagine that, right? They want to see us again to hear what some of the knowledge is or what some of the opportunity may be for us to be able to help them. And those count as $5 bills. And then ultimately people make a decision if they're going to work with us or not. And those become the $10 bills. So I encourage you to take inventory of everything. Inventory of how many calls you make, inventory of how many people want to meet with you, inventory of how much you do on a day-to-day basis, because our ability to track our success, whether it's good or it's bad, it's perfect. Because once we understand where we actually are at any given period of time, or how much cash, how much inventory we have in our financial drawer, we have the opportunity to make more money from our financial drawer because of all the inventory that's in that of activity in which we have created. So the first one is inventory and tracking. I have on here Financial Successful Clientele. It's a great book. If you don't have it, I recommend you get it, read it from beginning to end, and then turn around and read it backwards. Read it a couple times, read it throughout the year, study it. It's some of the greatest data, some of the greatest ratios out there for us to be able to learn from. And as I've coached individuals over time, I said, we can't do this unless we track our stats. So we always want to make sure we understand what the stats are, and we want to make sure we're playing a good game because we ultimately want the MVP. So as we move on to number two, from our key things that we want to learn is what you've done to get you here won't get you to where you want to go. I love this because if you see the picture on here, don't judge me, but the picture in the middle was me in high school. I was a guy, 6'9", in my previous life. I'm about 6'8" now because gravity's working on me a little bit. But we are 100% committed as human beings to our habits and rituals. If you don't believe me, if you're married, go home and try to sleep on the other side of the bed and see what happens, right? If you don't believe me, try waking up and doing something completely different every single day for the next 365 days. I encourage you that good habits and bad habits, both are hard to break. But it's better that we create habits and rituals on a day-to-day basis that will lead us to success. So for new advisors, here's what I'll tell you. Be the first person in the office. I remember when I first started, my mentor told me, he said, someone should be confused at who runs the office because of the people that show up first. So as new advisors, I suggest you get to the office first and you get there often. Why? Because mentally, the person who actually gets there first typically have keys to get into the office. And typically people that get into the office are the people that are the successful ones in the office because they're the ones that actually have the keys to let everybody else in, right? So they're leaders just by that in nature, and you can control that. Get to the office early. Those who have been in the business 20 years, try getting to the office early a little differently. It may change the way in which you go about doing business. So habits and rituals, those are phenomenal things for you to measure for yourself. And there's the human element part of this. And what I mean by the human element is we are the ones that mess the ratios up. We are the ones. So the human element part of this is we've got to take ourselves out of it. We have to create an environment where we cannot fail at the habits. We cannot fail at the effort on a day-to-day basis. That means we got to put forth extraordinary effort. And if we get ordinary results, we're okay. The problem with advisors and around the world, everybody I talk to that's in our industry is we put in ordinary effort and expect extraordinary results. That's not how this works. We've got to put in the extraordinary, right? That's the extra. The little extra is the difference, and expect extraordinary results. And if we come up a little ordinary, we're happy. But the alternative does not happen. So we got to take the human element out of it, and we have to take ourselves out of it. It's either a process or it's a problem. That means we start at one point, we end at another point, and there is no gray. That's how we make our cash register grow. And then last but not least about this piece is good to great. The enemy of great is good. And I'll repeat that a couple times. The enemy of great is good. So one of the things we can't find ourselves doing is celebrating too much. You go out, you meet someone, and you say you have a wonderful case. This is fantastic. And you go out and you say, you know what? I'm good. It breeds complacency inside of us. And that human inside of us that has adopted some bad behaviors when we feel good has a tendency to not do the extra in the extraordinary. And we want to make sure that we do that. So in there, you see the pictures. My journey was simple. My journey was high school. Right there, you'll see it. I was a young kid, just happy to be on the team. In college, yes, that's me blocking the best, it's actually goaltending, but nonetheless, they didn't call it, so okay, right? But that's me playing in college on the right-hand side. And then in the middle, you see the Chicago Bulls sign. In 1997, I was fortunate enough to be a Chicago Bull and to hang out with some really cool people in 1997 that you might have seen on The Last Dance. So for me to get to those levels, I cannot believe that I had already arrived. And that's my veterans that are listening to NAIFA Live, or, you cannot believe that you've already arrived, because what it took to get to where you are today, you have to scrap a lot of those things other than the good behaviors to get to the next level. For you to win championships year after year after year after year, you have to break your own system and then reinvent it even better than it was before. As we get into number three is a good one, right? Is we got to let go to grow, right? Being successful in our industry, there's many MDRT advisors out there, or people trying to get the MDRT, people that are past the point of survival, but you got to let go to grow. What I mean by let go to grow is we're taught in this business that we're so good, we're so smart, we're so talented, and no one can do it the way that we do it, right? I know I'm not the only one, right? No one can do it the way we do it. No one can put together that proposal the way we do it. No one can talk to that underwriter the way we do it, right? No one can talk to that client the way we do it. Why? Because we're built like that. We're told early on in our careers that it's on you. If you make it or fail, it's on you, right? So we have a tendency to put it all on us, and we never let go of those things because we don't want to fail. It's natural. So we have to let go to grow. Part of growth and scalability is we have to empower other people around us to be better at that job than we are ourselves. So my rule of thumb is fire yourself every 90 days. You say, Chris, what do you mean? Fire yourself every 90 days. So every 90 days, you're doing something, you're doing it pretty good, fire yourself and hire somebody else to do it. You say, Chris, why would you do that? Well, it's very simple, because you can scale at that point. That frees up the time, energy, and effort and money for you to go do something else, which is a revenue generating activity. Fire yourself. If you really want to know why you should fire yourself, look at this. If you take your last 2 weeks, or take your last month, right? Now, this is a working NAIFA Live, right? If you take how much time you spend on acquiring your last client, everybody take their last client. I want you to write down on paper how much you made on that last client, okay? And then what I want you to do is I want you to write down from soup to nuts, from the time it took for you to call them, set up a meeting, not the time it took you to maybe drive, right? But the time it took you to sit down, go through a potential fact finder, a recommendation, and then for them to buy, and then they bought. How much time did you put into that client? How much actual time, not a roundabout, exactly. How much time did you put into that client? And what you'll find is that here's how much my time is worth per hour. And I say, well, how much is your time worth an hour? Because what we'll find on a regular basis is that we can hire. We have the ability to hire somebody. If we're doing a $20 an hour job or a $15 an hour job, we can hire somebody to do that and go make $20 to $25 an hour over seeing clients and fighting to see clients. The two things that we really get paid to do, which I'm going to talk a little bit about later. And I talk about this about a story that I had when I was playing about delegation. And so you see a guy by the name of Michael Jordan over there on the screen. And so I mentioned in 1997, I had an opportunity to play with, Michael Jordan daily, quite frankly. And one of the things I saw that the way he went about approaching the game of basketball was like no other human being on anything. He approached the game of basketball through delegation. A matter of fact, Michael Jordan had someone that actually helped him walk through the plays. Michael Jordan had someone to walk through all the play alternatives. Michael Jordan would hire someone as a strength coach, even though Michael Jordan was very strong. Why would he not? Michael Jordan would hire someone to film him back in the day, to film him when he actually made moves, and he would go back and watch it. Michael Jordan would actually delegate the actual opportunity. Instead of shooting the ball and going to rebound it, of course he can go do that, he would have people come in and actually rebound the basketball for him, and he would pay them to do those type of things, right? He had people actually handle his cars. He had people handle all these different things. And what you realize is he was running an actual enterprise. He was running a business. He would delegate those things because he realized that I could pay someone to do them, or I could do them myself. But if I did them, I would make less money doing them. So why don't I delegate it to somebody else? It was a great opportunity for me to observe one of the greatest in the game. Delegate, 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 delegate. When I was with the Bulls, the same thing. Is the coaching staff is not one person. Even though one person is the coaching staff, is the head coach, you'll see 12 to 15 people sitting over there on the sidelines. One person will keep stats. One person will keep the hustle points. One person will keep how many loose balls there are. One person will keep track of the turnovers. One person will keep track of all these things. And they all come together and collaborate on that information, because those people are particularly better at that. So delegate, 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 delegate today. Start today. It will help you in your exponential growth of your practice. After you fire yourself, delegate, 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 delegate. As we go to number 4, I mentioned before your number one job, right? Focus on your number one job. What was your number one job when you were hired into this business? What were you hired to do? People say, I was hired to sell insurance. I was hired to make investments. I was hired to grow my agency. I was hired to do all these other things. But I beg to differ with everybody on this NAIFA Live today. I believe there are two things that advisors, financial advisors, or insurance professionals were hired to do. We were hired to see people and fight to see people. That's it. If I'm recruiting, it's the same thing. I was hired to see people and fight to see people. That's it. If I'm going working with clients, I was hired to see people and fight to see people. But how many times do we find ourselves doing all the other things that aren't in alignment of that? And so, number one, see people or fight to see people. See people and fight to see people, right? That's it. We used to have, when I was a rookie in the business, my first 4 years, we would come in every Monday morning, and we would have an award that we would give people, and it was an STP bottle. You know, the STP you put in a car, right? But it stood for see the people, and we got it all blinged out with gold or whatnot. But it was one of the most amazing things to see people fight for an STP bottle. The STP bottle probably cost $1.50, $1.60, but people were so proud to have that on their desk, because those people were the ones who won their award every week. When we put our numbers on the board, psychologically, those were the people that saw the most people. STP, see the people. And it was really funny. We had a lot of fun with that as young professionals, just really trying to get the STP for the week. So see the people, the ideal work schedule. So I find this to be interesting as I talk to advisors around the country, is that their work schedule is fluid. No, I don't believe that. I believe that you have the capability. You can earn that capability over time. But I believe the true pros in this business have what they call the beginning and the end, bookend hours, right? And I just relate it to scalability in other practices. Today, if I went to Target and target's hours are 9 a.m. to call it 11 p.m. If I showed his target at 7 o'clock a.m., would they open the doors because I felt good? Would they open the doors and say, you know what, I said, I just came for one thing, I'll be really quick? Will they open the doors for me? No, target's not open at that particular time. What happens if I came after they close? Does Target open the doors because, maybe we'll just let him in, maybe he's gonna buy a bunch of stuff? No, they don't. So an ideal work schedule, what does that look like in our industry? What does that look like in our industry? I believe, in my honest belief in this industry, I believe that we have the capability, if we do it full time and not get distracted by the nonsense and the noise of emails, internet, blah, all these other strange things that may pay us money, but they don't lead us closer to our objective. I believe we all have the ability to introduce ourselves to 20 to 30 people on a day-to-day basis, every day, all year. Now that's a challenge for a lot of people. You say, well, why would I want to do something like that, Chris? And you simply say, because no one else is doing it. I want to do it because no one else is doing it. So the ideal work schedule. Young professionals out there, if you're brand new in the business in the first 5 years in the business, the ideal work schedule is get to the office at 7 a.m. Start your practice at 7 a.m. and always work on Saturdays. Why do you want to work on Saturdays? Because that's the sacrifice you have to be one of the best. You see a picture of Usain Bolt on there. He is the best. Matter of fact, he's so good, he can actually slow down and watch other people lose. He's that good. Last but not least, the edge. Let's talk about the edge. Athletes talk about how to get the edge. And so people will ask, Chris, how do I get the edge in this industry? And I want to share with you a little secret that we've taught advisors on how to get the edge working with others in the industry. And so what I'd like you to do is just think through this for a second. How do we get a slight edge on the competition, regardless of the company affiliation, regardless of that? How do we get an edge on somebody else in our business? Well, I'll encourage you to do all the right things that we've talked about so far, and to do with those things on purpose. But that edge that I'm talking about comes in the amount of time you spend in the business. And that time, here's what I'd like you to do. If we just take a simple concept of we add an extra hour per day to our work schedule. What does that do in the competition? Right, we add an extra hour each day and we work 5 days a week, right? We've technically added an extra 262 hours a year on a 40-hour work week. We've actually added an extra 242 hours, and over a course of which is an actual 6.5 weeks, essentially, that we've actually added to our year. So just that simple concept, right? If we add an extra hour per day, that extra hour a day, an average 40-hour work week, right? We've added 262 hours in a year, which is 6.5 weeks in a year. In 2 years, it's 12 weeks. In 3 years, it's 18 weeks. And in 4 years, it's 24 weeks. So here's what I'll ask you. Think of it like this. If we were to go run a mile race, and as we ran that mile race, I started out, even though I may run a little bit slower than you, what are the odds are you're going to catch me? What are the odds that it's likely that you're going to finish the race first? What are the odds, not saying you're going to, but your opportunity, the opportunity, and isn't that what we're actually doing? We're fighting for the opportunity for us to have that slight edge over our competition. And what I mean by that is in sports. Remember I said I played basketball. And in high school, that gap between the talent and players was significant. When I went to all-star camps, that gap was even smaller. When I went to college, that gap was even smaller. When I got to the place in college where I was a starter, the gap was even smaller. Everybody could run, everybody could jump, everybody could shoot, everybody could do all the things. Some people were a little better. Athletic-wise, everybody was an athlete. Everybody could dunk a basketball. Everybody could do all those things. Where in high school, that gap was significant. Okay? When I got to the pros, everybody was an all-star on their college team. And so that gap was a little bit smaller. And the gap sometimes becomes so minuscule, so little, that the difference is that little piece. So I challenge you all, if you think about your business and you say, I put an extra hour in per day, 1 hour, maybe it's 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes in the afternoon, right? That extra hour in a day, give yourself that edge. That is the edge you want to create. So you know when you stack up against your competition, you're better prepared, you spent more time and energy developing your skill and craft, and you will then be confident. And you also will have a better opportunity for a better outcome in the future. So I suggest give yourself the edge. Focus on your number one job. See people and fight to see people. It's a great acronym. Write it down. It's fantastic. Let's go to 5. We're halfway through. And 5 is pretty simple. It's an absolute process, right? An absolute process just simply means this. It's a process or it's a problem. You heard me say this before, but here's the problem that I see with advisors all the time. It's a process or it's a problem. So people will ask me, Chris, well, I have a high net worth client. What do I say to him? I said, well, what do you mean? What do you say to him? You say the same thing you say to somebody else who doesn't have the money. I'm not sure. Am I confused? What am I seeing? Am I something different? What am I missing here? Right? Do they spend their money different? No. Do they save their money different? No. Do they sleep different? No. Do they walk different? No. Do they eat different? Do they chew gum different? So why would you treat somebody differently if at the end of the day, A, you don't know if you can help them, and B, you treat everybody with a blank slate when you start to meet them? So why does this person carry so much weight versus somebody else? And so it's a process or it's a problem. So what I'll find is advisors will skip around because they're looking for some magic potion that does not exist. And they're skipping around saying, well, I'll do this different for this client. I'll do this different for this client. Oh, I'll say something different to this client. Oh, I'm going to say something amazing to this person. But wouldn't it be nice to treat everybody fair so you don't have to think about it? I go back to my sports. I didn't think about dribbling a basketball after I dribbled a basketball over and 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 over again. It became muscle memory. And I suggest to you, your approach when you talk to someone, what you do for a living, when people ask you that, it shouldn't be made up. It should have been practiced over and over again so you don't have to think about it. It should be something that just flows off the top of your tongue or off the top of your head every single time. It's either a process or it's a problem. So you create the process so it's no longer a problem. So when you meet Mr. Big, it comes off the exact same way. It comes off fluid, and it sounds like you're not a canned, quote unquote, salesperson in the industry. It sounds like you're very passionate and you're very excited about what you're doing because you've done it and you've embraced it and it's become part of who you are. We don't take orders, guys. So people can't start. If your process is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, people can't start in the middle of your process. Stop it. They can't do it. Don't let them do it. Don't let them compromise the integrity of your practice, your knowledge, and your capability of helping them. Don't let them do that. We do not take orders. Someone calls you up and say, Chris, I need $1 million of life insurance. You say, well, you know what? I'm going to skip the entire process. So we spent time, energy, and effort creating this amazing thing, this amazing client experience, and we're going to skip it because you called and I'm going to take order. The moment you start taking orders is the moment you get compromised on cost. So don't take orders or sell yourself short or compromise your process. It's not worth it. No one's that special for you to compromise all the time and energy you spend building the process to compromise it for one person. Just don't do it. Don't get in the habit of doing it because, again, good habits and bad habits are hard to break. Don't get in the habit of breaking your habits because, again, you won't be able to overcome that. So I talk about the goose with the golden egg theory. It's just simply this, is that we as representatives and advisors have this idea in our head that uber high net, the super client, Mr. Big, right? Let's call them Mr. or Mrs. Big. Mr. or Mrs. Big means so much to us that we find ourselves compromising who we are, our integrity. We find ourselves compromising our sales process. We find ourselves compromising all these things to try and win that client. Here's what I'll tell you. I've never met anyone in this industry that said that one client is the only reason why I made it in the industry. So I'll tell you what, at the end of the day, those clients need to work to become your client. Every client is just a client. That's it, right? And the only way you stay in this business long-term is you have to build what they call a clientele, because there's not one client that ultimately can lead you to success. It can have you be successful for a year or two, don't get me wrong. But at the end of the day, if you want to stay in the business long-term, you've got to build a diverse clientele that will allow for you to grow as they continue to grow over the course of their career. Just think of it like McDonald's. McDonald's, you walk in and when you sit down, they take your order. Once they take your order, you stand at the counter, they take your order. Once they take your order, again, delegation, they delegate it to all the other people. They didn't create the products, and then they give it back to you and say, thank you, and they smile and they have a great day. You don't go to McDonald's. McDonald's does not only sell certain things. They only do certain things, right? So I don't go to McDonald's and say, hey, can I have chicken, or can I have ribs or a steak? When I go to McDonald's, if you pull through and ask for that, they will say, sorry, we don't do that. And they're not going to compromise their process because you want a steak. So don't be the person that compromises your process or their products because someone else wants something that you don't do. It's very simple. Let's go back to the basics. It is an absolute process. Here's the process we go about making people clients, and we're super excited about it, and we're super passionate about it, and we don't compromise it for anyone. No golden egg, no super client, no Mr. or Mrs. Big. Do not hold that false sense of security of that super client is going to be the reason why you make it in this industry. There's not one single advisor I know that are super successful that have had one client be the only client they work with for the rest of their career. As we get into number 6, so we're on the downside, we're almost home. As we get into number 6, we see that relentless pursuit of a target. So now that we've created the process, and now we're never going to compromise our process, and now we're really focused on the day-to-day activity, see people and fight to see people, and now we're actually going to have the edge. Now we're going to get into the fact that we're going to be relentless. We're going to lock in on specific individuals that we want as clients. And guess what? Either they're going to tell us no, that they don't want to be our client, which means no doesn't mean no forever. That just means that no, not this particular time. I don't have a need for your particular service, but if you stay in touch with me, I would love the opportunity to work with you. So we're going to be relentless in a target specific market. We want to find out who are the people that you want to go after. Yes, the broad brush works, but at the end of the day, find yourself a target, do that, and find yourself a target. And the reason why you want to find yourself a target is because birds of a feather flock together. And we like birds, right? We like birds that flock together because they typically have the same issues, problems, challenges, right? So our target market. So we want to find out clubs, associations, affinity groups, organizations that naturally feed into these organizations. So I've got a pretty significant clientele that are physicians. And what I found is that in the physician market, there's associations of the physicians associations. There's also residency programs, and there's also medical schools. And those people ultimately are always looking for professionals to actually come in and talk to their students, right? Everybody wants to go after the doctor who's making $1 million a year. What about those students that at the end of the day, if you put in the time, energy, and effort, and you build a relationship that ultimately will become your client over a period of time, if you plant the seeds, water those seeds, spend a little bit of time with them over time, they will become your clients. What about supporting the organizations and the information that they believe in and they follow? Why? Because it makes sense. Why? It will lead you to being in the room where it happens. It will lead you to being an expert and an opinion in those opportunities. What about also going and joining the clubs that they join or the affinity groups in which they join? What we find is that those affinity groups typically at times are always looking for partnerships, sponsorships, opportunities for experts to come in and be subject matter experts. And also now you have the people that provide products and services to those individuals, which in the physician market is the drug reps, it's the medical device reps, it's the accountants, it's the attorneys, those people that advise physicians in a specific market, we support them. Why? Because you want to become as known as the guy. And what I mean by that is it's funny, in a lot of medical circles, people will call Chris the money guy. He's the financial coach, he's the money guy. That's what they refer to me as on all things, right? Simply because I played sports. And I've loved the opportunity of working with specific markets like that. So I'm suggesting to you, if you want to get into specific markets, we have to now, if we scale, we've got to find some target markets. We have to target market from the top, bottom, and middle. Okay, and we have to do that as we start to then scale our process, because we're going to be spending that extra hour every day, working a little bit harder on seeing people and fighting to see people. Create the win-win relationships. So most successful people have successful relationships with their accountant or attorney, trusted relationships. We've got to create those relationships. And here's my challenge to everybody on this call: give more from that relationship than you get. Everybody on this call should make a point in 2021 to give more referrals than they get. And the reason why is because the brain and reciprocity tells us that if we give more and expect nothing in return, that people will then give to us. But again, we're professionals, so we can have that intelligent conversations with other people and win, and do so in a very professional way, right? And if not, find somebody else, find other organizations, find other people that are willing to work collaboratively to work with clients, because there's not one person that actually rules the roost with a client. Last but not least, invest versus spend. This is key here to scaling a practice. People will spend money on things and expect a return. That's not how it works. If you go to Target today, we can talk about Target. If you go to Target today and you spend money, how much of a return do you expect when you spend the money at Target, other than the goods in which you bought? I'm listening. I didn't hear anything. The answer is zero. You don't expect a return. However, if I invest money, what do I expect? I expect a return. And the reason why I expect a return is because an investment by nature has put that money at risk with the opportunity for it to grow. And so the key thing that I think is key is our service providers. We've got to invest into other things, service providers, and opportunities that will allow for our opportunity to grow, for us to become subject matter experts in our industry, and ultimately people to introduce us to other people in their industry. Invest your money versus spend it. Invest it in people, invest it in institutions and opportunity that allow for you to be in the room where it happens on a regular basis. And at the end of the day, ladies and gents, you've got to spend money. The only way to have access is you've got to spend money. And you've got to spend money not knowing if it's going to work or not. That's how this works. You say, Chris, I don't have the money. Well, that's the risk you have to take, right? And if you don't have the money, you have the time. So invest the time into getting to know other people that advise those people. So the relentless pursuit, and to be relentless, you've got to lock on and focus, because if you're not relentless, then somebody else, somewhere else is more relentless than you, and don't let that be you. We fall into number 7, and number 7 is kind of funny to me, but new clients. How many new clients? 30 new clients a year at target market. So we talked about target market, but 30 new clients a year. I learned this from one of my mentors back probably 15 years ago. Is that he said, Chris, everybody is not your client. He goes, they're just not. It needs to be a mutual relationship. They have to understand that at the end of the day, you're working with them, but they're also working with you, and you've got to have a mutual understanding and respect for each other if you're going to work together. How many times do you find yourself in a relationship where the person is just not a person you would spend any time with unless they were your client? So the question I'll ask you is, why did you compromise your process and who you are to bring them aboard the first place? Was it for money? Because if it was for money, what you'll find is that once the money is spent, then you find yourself servicing someone and spending time with someone and helping someone, or someone that you really don't enjoy doing. So how fulfilling is that? So here's what I tell you: everybody's not your client. It is a mutual relationship. And I'll give you the example that I use. I'll use this all the times. I'll throw myself under the bus. I'll simply say, I don't know if I can help you. I honestly don't, because I don't come in this expecting anything out of it. I don't expect that the fact you're going to work with me. I don't know. But at the end of the day, if at the end of the conversation, if we find out that it makes sense for us to continue our conversation or our dialogue along the way, I love the opportunity to do that, as long as it makes sense for both of us. And so I don't bring clients on in which I don't enjoy working with. My first 2 to 3 years, I did that often. I did it often, and I would chase dollars and cents. And what I found is it cost me more money over time to get rid of that client. It's a mutual win-win relationship. One of my mentors told me, and we'll go into the psychology of this whole idea of 30 new clients a year in a specific market. This is so powerful. The moment we say to someone, people want what they, so first of all, let me rewind and say, people want what they can't have. People buy differences, not similarities. So one of the things I learned a long time ago, the moment you tell somebody that you don't want them, the more they lean into wanting you. And so here's a philosophy for all of you, and I'll share this with you. It's really cool, actually. In your approach, you start to say to clients, I only take on 30 clients a year. I only take on 30 special clients a year because of the way we love on our clients and the kind of type of experience we have with our clients. We only do 30 clients a year. And you'll find your clients sit back and say, that's it? And the answer is yes. You only work with 30 clients a year, 30 special clients a year. Now, in a specific market, if you're early in the business, you work with 30 in a specific market, right? I work with 30 physicians a year, right? That is a true fact, right? I only work with such and such a year. I only work with 30 entrepreneurs a year, right? Why? Because you want to create some scarcity. Because the moment we create scarcity is the moment that other people want what they can't have. And here's an example of scarcity. I just thought this was really funny, so I added it, right? So we all went through 2020. And when we first heard about the coronavirus, this is the one and only time you may hear about coronavirus on this, but when we heard about coronavirus, everybody went out and bought as much toilet paper as they possibly could, as if toilet paper was going to save our lungs and our heart. But yes, they went out and bought as much toilet paper as they possibly could. And so, because that created this scarcity, I looked up online last year at some point in March or April, there were actual toilet paper like this, being sold online for $59 for toilet paper. It created the scarcity mentality. It created that concept that if I can't have it, I'll pay more for it. Create that in your prospects. I tell you, it works. The moment it works for you, I want you to send me an email. I'm a NAIFA member, I'm a trustee. I want you to send me an email, say, Chris, I tried it. But don't be the person to say, I want that, but I'm not going to try that. Try it. I want you to send me an email and tell me how it worked. You'll find that clients will lean into it because they carry the scarcity mentality. As human beings, we want what we can't have. Let's go to number 8. And number 8, stay focused, right? We have a tendency to not be focused because we want the immediate gratification. And we want the immediate gratification. It takes 3 months for this process really to start, first psychologically, personally, and then professionally. And then we have to do it in our heart. Because why? Because we have to be passionate about it. We got to find that patience, right? That patience. We have to plant the seeds today and water it, come back, water it again. We have to wait, right? Why? Because if we do all the right behaviors along the way, we will get there. I promise you, you will get there. You will be able to scale your practice. You will focus on the things you need to focus. You will keep stats. You will start counting the pennies, nickels, and quarters in your financial drawer. I promise you that. Stay the course. Do not go off the course because it takes 3 months for you to get a feel for it, 6 months for you to get comfortable with it, 8 months, and you're rocking. And a year from now, you're looking at your practice saying, how did I double or triple my practice based on those little simple steps moving ahead? Make it a part of your DNA, right? Make it a part of your DNA that you're going to be better than you were in 2020. Make it a part of your DNA that you're going to improve every single day you come to work. You're going to improve. You're going to be a better advisor every day. Don't just say it, but do it, right? Whether it's an hour, 30 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes on the front end, back end, do that and start to watch your practice start to explode. Second thing, it's not easy. Let me explain something. This is the hardest thing you have to do. You've got to commit versus being interested. So you may ask, as we wrap up and as we're closing here shortly, committed versus interested. What's the difference? Well, we are all interested in a lot of things. I'm interested in going to Las Vegas. I'm interested in going to international, overseas. I'm interested in going to Sweden next year. I'm interested in a lot of things, right? But the difference between interested and committed and being committed is a slight word called convenience. Because the moment something becomes too difficult to do, we have a tendency to stop doing it. I would give you human examples of that. 80% of smoke alarms either have no batteries or bad ones. We understand that we could possibly burn down our house. We understand that it's important. Then why don't we check it every single day or every week to make sure that our smoke alarms work? Why do we not do that, right? 100 out of 100 people who join a health club, 50% of people don't even go after 2 weeks. And out of those 50%, another 20% don't go after 30 days. And after the next after those percentages done, half of those people don't go after 3 months. So what you find out is 10% of people that started actually end up going for a period of time. Why is that? We believe that if we work out, perhaps we'll feel better. We believe that if we eat right, perhaps we'll live longer. We believe all these things, but when it becomes inconvenient, when it becomes more difficult to do, we have a tendency to give up. Why? Because that's the convenience factor. So here's what I'll tell you. Trust me when I tell you this. Commit to 1 or 2 things. Stop committing to everything because you can't. You can't be that person. You can't commit. We over commit. So let's decompress that a little bit. The difference between ordinary is the extra. You got to put forth the little extra if you want to go to the next level. If you want to be MDRT, top of the table, core to the table, you want to be that advisor, you've got to do it a little bit differently and be patient along the way. And number 9 is tell everyone. You know, I laugh all the time because people will say these things like, I got a goal. I was like, how many people have you told? And they'll say, oh, no, anybody. I got this goal. I wrote it on paper. I said, I'm not sure that's a goal because the 6 steps of goal planning, the number 1, it says you have to have a burning desire to do so. And that's from Think and Grow Rich. If you haven't read the book, read it. And if you haven't read it in a long time, go back and read it. 6 steps of goal planning, number 1 is burning desire. And a burning desire, you can't hold back. You can't stop it. It will overwhelm you. It will inflame you. It will give you the burning desire, the passion to just spill on everybody. So you cannot stop that. Goals are not secrets. You have to tell everybody. Sell out for your goals. People say sellouts are bad. I disagree. I believe when I started in sports, and I use my sports analogies a lot because it just helps me bring back and level set. We started off the season believing we would win every game. We did. Think about a sports team. They start off thinking they're going to win every game, right? Of course they do. They don't start the season in practice, the first day of practice, saying, you know what, we're going to lose game number 6 to Iowa. We're going to lose by 6 points. Actually, in overtime. We're actually going to lose game number 12 to Ohio State by 3. That's what we're going to do. Yeah, that's what we're going to have. Let's do that. Let's make an agreement now. Let's do that. It's not how it works. We all start off with great intent that we're going to be great at this, and you make that decision early on. So sell out for it. We would sell out to have an undefeated season every single year. We would do whatever it takes, dive in the stands. We would do whatever it takes. And hopefully we would have an opportunity to do that. So sell out for your goals. That is, having courage to sell out for a goal, having the courage. Courage is never awarded. Courage is one of those things that is undermined all the time. So you have to display courage at this time to step up and take your practice to the next level. Create a bench. So what does that mean? That create a bench means you got to have 5, 6, 7, 8 people that want to see you become successful. They just do, right? Create that bench of people. Tell your colleagues, your friends. You got to tell people about your goals. Create that bench strength. I remember when I played sports, right? And I'll give you this example about Michael Jordan. This is fantastic, right? It's such a great example. Michael Jordan was arguably, some people out there may disagree with me. I don't know who that is, but I'll go with you. I'm sure there's some LeBron James fans. But that's another topic. So look, Michael Jordan is arguably one of the best couple basketball players to perhaps play the game by all practical standards, not stats or this or whatever. But if Michael Jordan played the worst team today in the NBA, Michael Jordan versus 5 other NBA players, up and down a basketball floor, what are the odds, no matter how good he is, what are the odds he would win? Regardless of how good Michael Jordan is. He's not beating 5 other professional basketball players in the NBA. No matter how good he is, he will lose every single time. And I can tell you, the majority of advisors who get to a certain level in their practice start losing because they want to play by themselves. They want to play against the world. They want to play, they think they can be bigger. They're better, they're the best ever, but they start to lose because what they start to lose is sight is that they can't win a championship year after year on their own. They may win 1 or 2, but consistently, they cannot win on their own. Just like Michael Jordan can't beat 5 other basketball players. And if he can't do it, the great one, I'm not sure you should try it. You should try it yourself. So here's what I do. I think it's a great concept. I do it on a regular basis. I tell my advisors, pull out your phone, right? And we're going to set goals, right? When we set goals, what we do is we put them on our phone, right? So we have these like cool things on our phone called screensavers, right? And on our screensavers, it reminds us, they're little reminders that remind us on a day-to-day basis of things that we have to do. I put it on the screensaver. So when it comes up, literally, I can't hide from it. I cannot hide from this, right? If I said that I'm committed to doing this, this is what I'm going to do, either eat it or bust. That's it. Put it on your screensaver, put it on your iWatch, put it on your computer, put it everywhere where it constantly reminds you that here's what I'm going to do, here's why I'm going to do it, because of all these things that I said I'm going to do. And at the end of the day, if you say it out loud, then you don't want to go back on your word and say, you know what, I got a big mouth and, I got a mouth that, I can't cash in on what I said I was going to do. So don't be that person, right? I want you to be ultimately successful and do exactly what you say you're going to do. And then last but not least, which is always my favorite, is once you win a couple, don't read your press clippings, right? Sophomore slumps are real. Right? Sophomore slumps are typically guys that have really great freshman years, typically have slumping following years, right? It works so good, you stop doing it, right? All the hard work, all the dedication, all the humbleness leaves once you have a level of success. So all my veterans out there who've crushed it, or first year, second year, you've done really well, you know what? So what, right? If you want to be great, you want to scale, you want to double your practice, you got to forget it. Right? I laugh on a regular basis. I have a fantastic mentor in this industry. And here's what I'll tell you, right? He doesn't keep a lot of the stuff, his awards, in his office. I said, where do you keep them? He said, I put them in a box. I said, why? He goes, because if I want to look at them, I'll go down and look at them. He goes, it just reminds me that I got to go to work. I keep one each year and I pick one that I like. I said, why? He said, because it gives me that edge. He goes, because I love the opportunity to be able to work and create something new. So enemy is the good of great. Enemy is the enemy of great is good. I apologize. So be courageous to be different. People buy differences and not similarities. And here's a copy of the press clippings. I remember our coach used to come into the locker room with his chalkboard, and he would say, hey, you've been reading too many of your press clippings. And we would wonder, what are you talking about? And what he would see is he would see after a win or a couple wins, he would see that our play would start to fall off, that the attention to detail, that desire to be great, that desire to just stick it to people, that desire to be different, that desire to be a disruptor was gone. And it left. It was still there, but it needed to be woken up. And so I encourage you, after you win, celebrate it, and let's move on. And here's the example I will give to you. You ready? If we're going to play a basketball game today and the clock goes off and you happen to win, or I happen to win, imagine celebrating the game 3 games from now before the next game. Think about that. You would never do that. You celebrate the game and you get ready for the next game. But imagine celebrating the game as if this game doesn't even matter, and you're going to celebrate this game 3 days from the time in which you won. You would never do that. So I encourage you to win, and once you win, celebrate it, and then ultimately put it down and focus on something else. So those of you out there who have walls full of accolades and all those other great things. You want to double your practice, just get rid of them. We know you're good, right? You wouldn't be on this call learning from me if you weren't good. You're great. You're amazing. But think about how much impact you can have, how much better you can be if now you take those down and now you refill your wall back up with brand new stuff. All the things that will happen and all the positive things that will happen because of that. I encourage you to do that. So those are my 10. Those are my 10 things. Hopefully you've learned something fantastic today. As we come to a close, here's what I'll tell you. You were put here on earth to achieve your greatest self, to live out your purpose and to do it courageously. So I encourage you all on this call to do at least half of the 10. Do at least half of the 10. See the impact you can make on your life, see the impact you can make on your colleagues, see the impact you can make on your clients, and send me an email. I encourage you to send me an email. Send me an email when you see the impact on your practice and all the wonderful things that you can do and continue to be such a NAIFA supporter and give back and expect so much in return. Have a great day and thanks for having me here.